So, welcome, community, to our 30th episode of Roots of Resilience. Tonight, we are honored to hear from Vaelupe Maele Gonzalez of Pacifica Rooted Therapy. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat, either on Zoom or on YouTube. And of course, thank you for being here. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Roots of Resilience podcast, where we grow strength and empower dreams by celebrating Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander small business journeys and community-rooted leadership. My name is Lorraine Tuala, and I welcome you all today as our co-host alongside our executive director, Alisi Tulua. Before we introduce our very special guest tonight, let's start in the ways of our culture with prayer and acknowledgments. So I'll go ahead and open our episode with a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, so grateful for this opportunity that we get to spend with Vaelupe tonight. We're grateful for all that she's done for our community and grateful to spend this quality time with her. We pray that we may continue to be open and share all of her wisdom with our community members. We're grateful for the work that she's doing to help our communities become well and heal with all of the different things going on in the world today. Grateful for the opportunity that we each get to work in our communities and share resources and information and education to help ourselves and to also support one another as well. We are grateful for all the many blessings thou has given to us, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alisi.
Thank you, Lorraine. Welcome, everyone. Again, I just echo Lorraine's sentiment. I'm really excited to be co-hosting today's Roots of Resilience episode. And at this time, to carry on with cultural protocol, I want to give some acknowledgments. We're grateful for the blessings and guidance of our Heavenly Father who has brought us together in community tonight. Also want to give our sacred acknowledgments to the original stewards of the land that we conduct our work on, wherever that may be for you. But for SoCal Pickard, it's definitely our paying our acknowledgement to the Tongva and Tumash people and the First Peoples of LA County region. And on behalf of SoCal Pickard, we commit our work to supporting your community's pursuit for self-determination, both for the current and for future generations. We also want to give our deepest respects to our elders who laid the foundation for our work today. They helped to give us purpose in this work. And we acknowledge and thank each and every one of you who are tuning in on YouTube and will be tuning in the future if you're catching the recording. Thank you for being with us today. And last but not least, our ultimate utmost gratitude to Vaelupe for joining us tonight. We're so honored to have you as a guest. As we have been chasing you the past year and a half, 2 years. But we are so grateful to have you here. Welcome. And with that, I will let Lorraine give your introduction, as this is our way of giving you your flowers, since we're not in person to give you a lei. So,
Thank
Lorraine.
you. Thank you, Alisi. So I'll go ahead and read your bio. So Vaelupe Maele Gonzalez, licensed marriage, family, and therapist, also known as Vi, is a proud queer Samoan therapist, storyteller, clinical supervisor, speaker, and community builder who refuses to separate culture from mental health care. She is the founder of Pacifica Rooted Therapy, where her work centers culturally grounded, anti-oppressive, and community-rooted care for Pacifica, AA, NHPI, QT, BIPOC, and communities of color. Through therapy, workshops, speaking, community talanoas, and her work with the Island Fever podcast, Vi creates brave, unapologetic spaces where culture, identity, and emotional well-being can coexist. Her work supports people in reconnecting with identity, healing, community, and the parts of themselves they may have been conditioned to silence or hold alone. VIA is committed to decolonizing mental health, challenging systems that erase and underserve our communities, and reminding people that they deserve space to show up fully as themselves. When she's off duty, you can usually find her hunting for the perfect cup of coffee, singing every lyric to 90s R&B, chasing sunsets by the ocean, or sneaking in a golden hour nap. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alicia.
That sounds beautiful. I can't wait to hear more about that. I know Lorraine and I are passing the ball back and forth, but we promise we'll give you a chance to share
Sounds
shortly.
good.
We're just happy that you're here with us today. And before we jump into our conversation, I want to give a little bit of background on Roots of Resilience. Here at SoCal Pickard, Roots of Resilience is part of our Pacific Pathways program, which has a focus on navigating our community through small business support programs and resources. Um, we connect NHI communities to resources for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and also families with housing needs. Roots of Resilience is our way of uplifting and highlighting our small business community while sharing resources that we hope will help to strengthen and empower the dreams of our families. This program is funded through LA County's America Rescue Plan funds, which came out during the pandemic to help communities recover from the impacts of the pandemic. And so we hope that what we have done so far, as we are coming to a close of the 2 years of this program, has helped our small business community, which I know is one of the ways that we self-determine how we make a living and how we bring livelihood to our families. It's a really beautiful way for many of our entrepreneurs and dreamers to live into their own vision. So, with that, I introduce myself. My name is Alicia Tulua, and I'm have the privilege of co-hosting tonight. I'm definitely neither Upu nor Peter, so we'll do our best tonight to emulate their energy as they are taking care of very important business right now. I have the honor of serving as SoCal Pickard's executive director. And I was born and raised in Tonga, and my family moved to the US when I was 13. And the past about 2 decades I've spent working in nonprofit, serving our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community, and whether that's in capacity where I'm working in a Pacific Islander organization or even in larger AAPI organizations, my interest has always been to be of service to our community. So I have the privilege of being here tonight in that capacity, and I'll hand it off to my co-host Lorraine to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Yay. Thanks, Alicia. I'm Lorraine Tualalawai, and I'm the other co-host here. I'm currently the program manager for the Community Navigators program. My her village is Fankongo in American Samoa, and my father's village is Nofoali'i in Samoa. I was born here in West Covina and raised in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm married to my amazing husband for nearly a decade. Had to give him a shout out there. And I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to Alicia so we can get started. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. I know, Vaelupe, we read your bio, and I'm gonna go back and read it again. I love everything that has been shared about you so far. But to also give you a chance to introduce yourselves in, words of your own and maybe something you want to add to the bio. But we're so happy that you're here with us, and welcome. And I'll give you a chance to just share a little bit more before we throw a question at you.
Fair enough. Well, first, thank you. I'm excited that after however long you said, a year and a half, we're finally here. We get to Talanoa. We also just get to be in community. I am no stranger to the work that you guys do, not a stranger to the beautiful leadership that you both advocate for our community. So it is an honor to be introduced by y'all, but to also hear who you are and how you show up in the world. And to your point, my name is Vaelupe Ma. She's a married girl, so to respect my wife, I've been trying to use my last name, my new last name, more than usual. But as y'all can imagine, that gets complex with a first name like Vaelupe. So we've got to keep my Samoan name somewhere in there. But to introduce myself, I would usually lead with some of the things that were at the end of that bio. I am a Libra through and through. That's what I want people to know, which means I'm indecisive. I like chill vibes, and harmony really matters to me. And we see that in my Samoan identity, in my identity as a therapist. But nonetheless, I am a proud Samoan woman. Both of my parents are of Samoan descent. I know that we'll probably learn more about what that means, but I wear that on my chest. And then you meet me as a therapist, you meet me as a community healer and as a practitioner. I'm an eldest daughter. That role shows up a lot. And I also wear that one on my sleeve, but nonetheless, I'm a human and I'm grateful to be here. And I'm looking forward to just the depths of our conversations tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. What I also really love about your bio, which thank you for bringing us back to that, is really, I think you share here the way that you approach the work that you do, and not and that you're working with individuals, but you're also working at a systems level by, you know, an issue like mental health that is largely defined in very Western terms. So you're challenging the system and decolonizing what that looks like. And I really appreciate your focus on underserved communities and communities that are often marginalized, and not just as NHPIs, but also our queer communities, even within the NHPI label, is largely invisible and marginalized. So I appreciate that you live into those in your bio. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so I guess my first question is if you can share a little bit of, I suppose that some of those values that you hold come from something you mentioned, like being an eldest daughter,
Yeah.
your Samoan culture, your upbringing. Can you share a little bit about that upbringing, and how Samoan values have that continue to guide your work today?
Oh my goodness. There's like, okay, how much time do you have? Um,
We can
All
go
the
for as
time you
long.
need, all the time you need.
when I think about my upbringing, the number one thing that always stands out to me is I was raised with an understanding that I am never walking into a room as myself. I
Mm,
represent so much more than who I am as an individual. And that is, I mean, I'm biased, but I feel like that is so important to someone community is that when you walk into a space, when you occupy a space, you're a representation of where you come from, before you're ever talking, Vi as the therapist or Vi as a Samoan community member. I'm usually starting with, hey, I am the daughter of Ma'ele and Ramona. My parents hail from the villages of both independent Samoa and American Samoa, and I don't take
mm.
that lightly. I'm a product of a parent from the islands and a parent from the states.
Oh
And what do you
wow.
get? Well, you get a mix of a lot. But to your point, I grew up with a lot of witnessing. I grew up learning how people show up, the Samoan value of family, humility, respect. These aspects that a lot of Samoan people speak to.
Mm,
I'm no different. I was raised by witnessing sacrifice, by what people did in our church, what my aunts and uncles contributed to, watching my parents and my grandparents house other family members as they came from the islands. And that shapes this value of how to treat people, how
yeah,
to be in a room with other people, and how to also offer. Right?
yeah.
We talk about the concept of service. There's no way you're gonna have a someone up here and we don't mention service in some capacity.
Right?
But I share that to say that that's a deep value of how I carry myself in the work that I do. And then everything is deeply woven into whether I'm speaking, I'm sitting with a client, I'm in a podcast interview like this, it
Mm-hmm.
naturally shows up. So it's embedded. Those values also just expand the way I explore with clients, if I'm being honest. That's
Mm.
usually where my curiosity starts, is like, who are you? You know, how are you coming in? Because I want to pay respect, but I also want to honor all of those sacrifices that are sometimes unspoken or unseen. And
Mm.
that I would say comes from the values as a someone person.
Mm.
Obviously, too, respect is a big one.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I'm going to say respect does not mean silence for me as a someone person. I value respect, meaning where you come from in the walk of life, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to silence harm or that I'm going to silence the impacts of colonization and how it shows up. It just means that I'm going to do it mindfully and I'm
Yeah.
going to do it in a gentle way, but I'm still going to do it. So just honoring where we're coming from and also just making space for change.
Ah,
Fully loaded. So I'll give
that
you
is
a
very, that is a very rich serving. Thank you. Thank you for giving that to us. And I think that everything that you described makes me think about the name of your business, the name of
Yeah.
and sorry, I'm jumping right into the
No,
business
no.
aspect of
Go
things.
ahead. Yeah.
But if you know, if folks didn't already know this from your presence on social media, you have a your own practice, and it's called Pacifica Rooted Therapy.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about how you took everything that you just shared right now and uh, poured it into this business, into your
Mhm.
practice.
Yeah.
Um, as you know, I feel like you are a pioneer of sorts in this arena, and not just mental health, but the way that you have integrated narrative into the work that you're doing. You're building a lot of awareness on social media, and that's an aspect of the work that I haven't really seen. So, can you talk about how you came to the idea to do this as a practice, as a private practice,
Oh,
when most of our folks that come into this field choose to go into something that already exists? So,
yeah. Oh my goodness. So, to be honest, I had no aspirations to ever put my toes into business ever. Even down to when I became first licensed years ago, I had no interest in any of that because to me, the business aspect would rob me the healing work. I would have to become a
mm,
businesswoman and that would pull me away, was my misconception. But the more and more you live, and I don't want to assume, but I'm going to say for a lot of us in the business world, we walk alone before we ever find community
mm,
that is ours. We're surrounded by our Black and Brown brothers and sisters many times, but to sit with someone who is like us directly, it's a lonely journey. So I think that was also an aspect that pulled me away from ever being interested.
mm,
Where that all started to shift for me is the more and more I started to see the gap. And if anyone knows me, they know that the minute I learn about something, I'm going to do everything I can to either make it better, to fine tune it, or to go find some other resources that can help.
mm,
And the healing work and the therapy space for Pacific Islanders was non existent. And I
right.
continue to see that over and over throughout my, I think it was about 7 years in community mental health. So I was been a therapist for a while, but I had never seen representation, let alone when I had to seek therapy myself and I wanted a Pacifica clinician. Yeah,
Mm.
where? You're not getting that. So whether it was in my personal journey or in my professional experience, I continued to be met with this gap over and over. And not only does that create responsibility, at least for me, it really shifted. Like, I've got to do something about this. Here I am,
Mm.
a therapist. Here I am surrounded by amazing therapists, amazing mentors. How do I create a space
Yeah.
for people like me, for my
Mhm.
community? And it started from there. It started from talking to my mom about generational pain and trauma. And
Mm.
from there, that was where my favorite part of my story about private practice is why I decided to jump in. Why I said, okay, I never wanted to get my toes wet, but now I'm like 10 toes in and I'm gonna drown in this. I want to know what it takes. Is because I've seen the gap, I experienced the gap, but more than anything, I have been witness to shame, to pain, to violence, to harm. And when you experience that and see it through your own family, and you know you have some parts that could help, it's game over. That is what planted the seed. And I said, guess what? I'm going to start my business. I'm going to go learn how to do this. And granted, I can't see every person in the world, but at least there will be me for someone who's looking for it. Yeah, I don't want to go too in depth because I want to let y'all, kind of pick from that, but that's where it started.
Beautiful. I love that.
Thanks so much for sharing, Vaelupe. And just, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but as far as the work that you do, what does decolonizing mental health look like to you in your own practice?
That is a fun question.
Ooh, fun.
um, you know what,
You love
too,
the fun
Lorraine?
ones.
I love that you're asking this simply because you also are a clinician, right? And so I'm sure when I speak to
Mhm,
what we learn in schools is nowhere near, like, it's so out of touch for how we actually operate as humans,
mhm,
right? Not only the theories, but the way that our people are pathologized and the way that we're taught to be professional and have etiquette. All of that is completely opposite from how I operate as a Samoan person. Like, if we're being honest, and I know that that's the case for many people of color, is like, this does not align with who I am and how I show up, right? So decolonizing mental health for me, first and foremost, meant that I had to look at wellness as a whole. I needed to understand why these practices exist, these protocols, these procedures, who do they benefit? Not only that,
mhm,
but why have they been continued, and do I have to do that? Well, no, because starting my own business meant I get to reframe that in a way that feels like alignment, right? Where I don't have to pick and choose which parts. It also means that I have to call out harm. Insurance companies,
mhm,
right? Looking at how they want us to slap diagnosis on people just to justify services. That was one of the ways that I said, I don't want to take insurance if I have to do that.
mhm,
Not off the backs and the mental
mhm,
health of my people or anyone else. I'm not doing it. So it meant having to be informed of how to still advocate for clients who can only go to therapy with insurance, so that I understood what that meant for them and that I could teach them about it. The other part is the labeling. Like, if I have to be honest, the clinical work has a lot to do with putting names on things. And I'm very label resistant.
mhm,
That's a form of decolonizing mental health, right? It's like, not every person needs to have a diagnosis to have access to a therapist. Just like not
mhm,
everyone needs
mhm.
to be a certain presentation to go to church. You can go to church
Right.
just because. Um,
Mhm.
so in practice, it means that I don't treat Western therapy as the only source of wisdom.
Mm,
Decolonizing means I honor storytelling, prayer, food. I will break bread with a client in this exact office. I will pray with a client if that's something that they're leaning on for a form of strength. It means that I'm calling out colonization left and right. I
mm.
will literally sit with someone and say, was that your culture, or someone else's? Where did that come from? Like, can we get curious
Who
around
put
why
that
we
on you?
think, yeah, why we think that you need to dress up to come to therapy? Like, if that's not a thing
Right.
you're doing to feel
Mhm.
good, but you're doing that because
Yeah.
you think you need to appear a certain way, I will wrap this hair up real
Mhm.
quick and wipe off the eyebrows. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
It's just this manner of decolonizing also means that we stop putting the responsibility of all of this on an individual, and we actually start naming, what's showing up, the systems
That's
that take
right.
place. So I mean, sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's also letting my clients speak in their native tongue. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
also me speaking back, praying with them in a way that feels healing for them. But all of that comes with I think for me, the start of like naming what is ours and what isn't.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
Sorry,
Thanks,
that
Vaelupe.
one got
That was
I got a
beautiful.
No, no,
little
no,
loud on that one because that one
no,
I'm really
no.
passionate about.
I think there's so much truth that you just shared. As far as even those little things about how you said with clients dressing up to appear a certain way. I think one of the things that I always admire about you is that you always provide that safe space, whether it's with a client or with, community. But also, I also see that, you identify a gap. Um, in regards to therapy being like a westernized, thing. And so with that being said, I feel like a lot of times there's that stigma to that there's a barrier for folks. They're like, oh, I feel like I have to look a certain way, be a certain way. And so, for the question I wanted to ask even before, we continue with the business aspect is what drew you into the mental health field? Like, did you wake up one day and say, you know what, I want to be a marriage and family therapist? Or was it, a series of different, choices and just yeah, how did you come to work in the, mental health field, if you don't mind us
Yeah,
asking?
10 years ago when I first graduated as a baby therapist, I would have said like, oh, because I knew I wanted to help people and change lives. Now I will sit with you and tell my truth, which is I was called to this work. I now know that I
Mhm.
didn't really choose to do this work. I was called to do it, and what I chose was to honor that calling. And I say that now again because 10 years ago, Baby Vi didn't know that. And throughout the ebbs and flows of my career, that's been the beauty of the connection to why I do what I do, why I
Mhm.
created this practice, why I show up on social. All of the things are for me now falling into place. Um, but essentially, I know that from the very beginning, I've always been told I have a gift of connecting to people. That I,
Mhm.
even throughout my college years, my practicums, my internships, I was always told I have this gift of like bringing people together. And I'm like, someone people do that well. Pacific, like you ain't never been to a Pacifica function. If you think I'm good, like I got like 250 more people you could probably meet next Saturday. So I say that's like I think we just have this gift as people. And a lot of the people I surrounded myself with in my career started to highlight that. They would mention that to me, like, why you can you start this group? And I would be like, what, me? I don't want to start the group. That's extra work. But then I would go to someone else's group and I'm like, ooh, I could do that. Like, I can make that a little more fun and energetic. Um, but to your point, I was called to do this work very early on. I went to college to become a lawyer. I was so convicted in becoming a lawyer. My dad was just sentenced to prison for a very long time. So I had this fierce fight in my spirit of I'm going to become a lawyer so we don't have to pay for one. And I'm going to
Mhm.
fight for my dad. And that was my dream going into college. That quickly was like crumbled up and thrown to the side after meeting an actual lawyer, and then taking a psychology class. That part
Mhm.
of my story like made me pivot so quick where I just started chasing psychology up until I met a therapist. I first learned what a therapist was. Can we talk about how so many of us, at least back then, how many of us didn't even know what a therapist was? That was me. I'm like, what is that? Why
Same,
are you always
same.
taking these kids, talking to them and then they cry? Like, I had no idea what mental health, what therapy was, up until I realized, oh, I can probably do that. Like, what do you do? And then the question started, right? It's like, how many more years of school do I need to go to school for to become a therapist? And then what? And then what? And so this curiosity was just like something I was so invested in. I went straight to grad school after undergrad, and I was like, I'm going to become a therapist, not knowing I had to go to therapy, y'all. So again, there's a lot that I didn't know, but I was just chasing and trusting and hoping this was my path. But here I am now, and I know that all of those pivots in my life were part of my story. They were a really big part of, in my own world of how God was taking care of me, how God was guiding me, and how I had to really trust that, and I had to listen. And now here I am, 10 years into this field, and I'm like, woo wee, girl, you was getting called left and right to come to this field. You were just trying to like be a little curious, and you was getting lost in the sauce every turn. But yeah, it was not a straightforward path for me at all.
Yeah, I totally resonate with the journey. As someone that started of pre-med and working on medical school applications and decided to come into nonprofit so I can learn more about my community. Having grown up in Monterey and not really and discovering when I went to college that like, oh my gosh, our people are out here and I don't know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about when I'm speaking about Pacific Islanders. Like my experience are based on being in a bubble here in Monterey and having grown up in the islands that has so
Wow.
far from the
Wow.
experience of being Pacific Islander American, right? Which
Yeah.
I didn't really come to until I was in college. And so I came into nonprofit community nonprofit because I wanted to learn more about I wanted to know what I was talking about when I talked about our people.
Ooh, yeah.
Um and when you say that this was a calling, I thought my calling was going to medical school.
Yeah.
I really believed that for so long. But now I believe that this was my calling all along, because
Mhm.
all of that education has been useful here. And I kept trying to leave to go back for like a decade every year. I tried to apply to medical school
Oh,
and
Lisa, you were fighting way harder than I
I was
was.
fighting. I was like,
Okay.
I'm not
She
staying
was
here.
fighting hard,
Yeah,
fighting
Lorraine
hard
knows.
to
She
the
watched
death
me through
every
it.
year. I'm gonna put it
Mm.
in.
I'm gonna work on it.
Gonna
And
put it
every year there was some reason I couldn't submit, or I submitted it but missed something, or every year.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so I feel it, and thank you for saying calling, because I don't know if I've ever really talked about that journey being the calling that it is.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, see, it would have to take a therapist to give the language for this, right? So uh so even at the time when you had decided that you wanted to become a therapist, and you mentioned earlier that like doing, having building your own practice wasn't even in the cards. You didn't even think of that. When did that become a possibility for you? And how did you plan on that, like transitioning? What were you doing after you finished? Now I'm just all curious about the rest of the journey.
Uh, you know, so like many therapists, I think we start off very gradual before we go full blown private practice.
Mm,
And that's because sustainability is a big
right.
concern, right? When these corporations are offering really great packages, which works for some people and their families, like having kids, that really matters, right?
Mm,
Having a very well comprehensive health plan, because healthcare is expensive, like
right.
all of those things come into play. So my journey to private practice, I was always working in community mental health.
Mm,
Right after grad school, that was all community organizations. It was Department of Mental Health. I was in schools. I was in the streets, like meeting
hmm
folks who were battling, not being displaced from their homes or just not having housing. So a lot of my time as a therapist was spent in various populations, but always with folks who were, if I'm gonna call it what it is, folks who were in marginalized communities and heavily oppressed by the very systems that I was working in,
mm,
right, in
hmm
in county mental health.
Mhm.
So I gradually tiptoed into group practice. So working, seeing clients for someone else's practice, and that was a previous supervisor. And usually, after someone works part time in a group practice, they then venture off to private practice. Everyone
mm.
had left, and I was still at that group practice, like, nope, I'm good where I'm at with my
Not
little
ready.
10 clients. I don't want to work for myself. I want to stay here.
I have
Uh,
benefits.
yes, I
Yeah,
just want to
I'm
do this. This
comfortable.
feels good for me. And
Yeah.
then eventually from being in a group practice, I started my practice in 2019. I still didn't leave my full-time job. I was seeing
Mm,
clients. I increased my caseload on the side. So I was just seeing clients on the side while still sustaining a full-time job for a community org, which again, many therapists still do. It's a good recipe. And
mm,
so it wasn't until I think maybe 2 years ago where I really was like, you know what? I think I think I can do this by myself, because at that time too, I was learning how to reach community. I was
Mm,
learning, oh wow, there's so many more people. If I opened up my capacity, there's so many more clients I could see if I stopped at these community organizations. Or if I pulled back from supervision, now that opens up my caseload. So I was part time in my own private practice for a while. And then once I started to really find, I think, just passion, and said, I'm really going to bet on myself. And I have
Oof.
so much faith that this is going to happen and that people want to work with me. That's the
Yeah.
other part of it. Is like, wow, now I'm gaining interest. Now I have a lot of other Pacifica folks reaching out for therapy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I have not looked back since. And I don't plan on looking back. That's because I truly feel at home now. My practice is full. I have a wait list, which is like, I still get emotional when I look at that wait list, um, because never in a million years
Wow.
do you think, wow, so many, Pacifica people are interested in therapy, but not only therapy, but with me. And
Yeah.
it's more than anything, I think it creates validation that this
Mm.
work needs to happen.
Yeah.
We need more, we need more of us. Um, I was not expecting that to happen. You didn't wear the good
I
powder
love
today.
it.
it's okay. You
Um,
can let the tears
but
come. It's okay.
yes, that journey to where I'm at is, it's a blessing, and it's such a deep honor and a responsibility I carry. But more than anything, I hope it's an invitation for people who want to do this work, that they understand what they're getting into. But more than anything, that if you are called, oh baby, come on through, answer
Right?
that call. Don't fight like Alisi
Do
or
it.
me. Just relinquish and fall into the hands of this
Trust
work.
it.
Trust it, please.
Yeah, so of course, like you mentioned, working in this field is definitely not an easy one.
Yeah.
It definitely is a calling. It's not for the faint-hearted for sure. It's
Yeah.
like you really have to, dig deep within yourself. Because we're not all perfect. We all have our
Right.
struggles. But as a person, how do you care for yourself, while holding space for others? It's, easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, just curious to see what are some ways you do that for
Hmm.
yourself.
The way I care for myself always looks different. I
Mm,
wish I had a clean cut answer to say, like, this is my recipe. But it varies. It varies on how much energy I have or don't have. It varies on how much I've carried throughout the day. More than anything, though, I will always rely on connection. Connection to people,
mm,
to music, to land, to the ocean, to my own space, to my own breath. It's always connecting to something. That is always how I'm going to take care of myself. I would be lying if I didn't say I go to therapy myself. That's a big part of how I show up for Vi, that I'm not carrying all of these things, or when my own stuff is triggered, that I have a space to disconnect it from the work that I'm doing. And I really do, just like, this is so bad, but like every other islander, y'all, I love to be kicking it with the family and like just chilling. That's it. If we're just sitting on mom and dad's couch for hours clowning on each other, that is home for me.
mm.
Home for me is wherever I feel safe. And typically, again, that's where connection comes into play. So yeah, it's a mix and a match, but nonetheless, she's still someone girl at heart.
You can definitely not take that away from you.
I mean, speaking of connections, and um, I know that like a large part of your identity, and also the community that you also uplift and bring into your world is your identity as a queer Samoan, and your work that you're doing at Island Fever podcast really centers our cutie pie identities as Pacific Islanders. How have being connected or being more intentional in centering that identity and that community.
Yeah.
How is that and that can how has that connection really helped you um, in even just like how you incorporate certain things into your practice or even the way
Mm.
that you build community through visibility? How has that connection been made?
Yeah, it's complicated. Honestly, visibility is complicated for me because so much of it is not about just being seen.
Mm,
And for many cutie pie folks, it is about being seen in places where people like me have often learned to hide.
mm,
So that experience doesn't just go away. And as both a queer someone person and a therapist, visibility specifically means that I'm not showing up as polished versions of myself. I've done that most of my life. And when I show up in professional spaces, it's hard because you have to question, will my community still claim me?
mm,
Will family understand me? Will people only respect certain parts of me if I make this part of myself quiet or smaller? Um, and then also, the complexities that are often at play, I think, with visibility is how can someone be a queer person and still deeply rooted in spirituality and faith?
right, right.
Um, and so I share that because visibility is not just about posting online or being, on island fever like we're talking about. It's saying things like my wife out loud. It's putting my
Mm,
full self in my bio, in my introductions. It's also letting people like myself, the cutie pie folks who watch this, feel seen,
yeah,
right? And that they know you ain't got to turn it off. I'm not
yeah.
going to turn it off. So if I can be a representation, I hope that that's also a welcoming for their existence.
Mm,
So sometimes, choosing visibility means that I also have to be prepared to protect myself
yeah.
and the vulnerable communities that I represent. And that means being okay with not being digestible all the time.
Uh,
Uh, and so there's layered grief with that. I think that's something I share a lot when we talk about uh, being from a rich collectivistic culture and
mm,
taking up space.
yeah.
Yeah, because again, right, visibility. Some people, I think, my experience, I should say, my experience in outside spaces, outside of
Mm,
community, we are oftentimes told to like turn it down, like and maybe it's not directly that, but
yeah.
it's kind of seen as though we're asking for attention, but it's not. It's about
Mm,
evidence, right? Evidence that we exist, that we're in the room, that we're not new, that queer Pacifica people have always been
been
here,
here.
and evidence that we can be therapists,
Yeah.
business owners, executive daughters, healers, right? It just means that essentially at heart is like I get to be someone that I didn't have when I was younger. Um,
And now younger people get to have people like you.
yeah. Oh,
So, yeah, that's beautiful. I love I'm a big fan of the Island Fever podcast. I don't know if
me
the
too.
I don't think that's a secret. um, but I think coupled with even your own online presence
Mhm.
under Pacifica Rooted Therapy, um, I think you have been part of a generation on social media that is
Mhm.
providing a different lens on the way that we speak about ourselves, the way that we embrace each other as community.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the content that you put out there because it is so our experience. And
Oh,
I say our because I claim to just be a part of it, even if you're speaking specifically to a Samoan experience, right? Like
yeah.
I
Yeah.
resonate with that as a Pacific Islander person
Right.
and I think it's the kind of it's a shifting of the narrative from what we have always seen ourselves before, even a decade ago.
Mhm.
Um, can you talk about that journey of deciding to make content creation an aspect of the identity of Pacifica rooted therapy? And I think also that's a part of your practice that you're just giving for free for people who who come across it on social media. Can you talk about that? I think that's just phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I social media has been such a gateway to reaching community. So I appreciate and love when I get to hear that folks resonate what's being shared, or they have language, or they have a reference to be like, look, you see this? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I feel, and I don't know how to say. Um,
Exactly.
and to your point, Alicia, absolutely. I'd like to speak to the greater collective of Pacific Islanders, Oceania in general. And sometimes there's overlaps with other, communities of
Yeah.
color that come from rich culture, and they're like, girl, I ain't Pacific Islander, but yes. Um so showing up on social media came from thinking about how am I going to reach my people. When I
Mm,
decided I'm ready to go full blown private practice, that's the number one, business thing you have to think about is referrals and how you're going to sustain your business, how you're going to market. And to be honest, I was like, the only way people gonna learn about therapy is through church or each other. And I
yeah.
ain't really gonna be
Word of
in one
mouth.
of them spaces advocating for therapy. So what's the next most like feasible option, right? And I was like, social media. And I'm like, damn, I don't want to be on, like, I really didn't want to be on social media as a therapist.
Right.
But when I had, like, one of my mentors asked me, Vi, how do your people learn about stuff? And I'm like, through church or word of mouth from each other. And
Yeah.
she's like, well, if you're not going to be marketing in them spaces, how do you plan on doing this? So it kind of was like a damn, I have to do it. I gotta,
Yeah.
I gotta try social media before I start going to churches and start switching up on like my my religious beliefs per church. That didn't feel right.
Mm,
So I said, okay, let's do it. Let's start creating content on social media and let's just see. And it's been um a slow and gradual, place to where it's at now. And I think too what feels continuing that is when people are connecting, when
yeah.
people are sharing. Like I read the comments, I see what people say, and I'm like, oh wow. Many times I'm just speaking from my lived experience. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I know as a therapist is that I am never alone in these experiences. They're
Mm,
unique to some of my circumstances and family dynamics and my life. But overall, as a collective, there is so much that we as Pacifica people relate to when it
mm,
comes to, family, our identities. And then, of course, what I speak on is the harm and how to navigate from that harm, or just
mm,
hoping people have language.
yeah.
So a big part, and shout out to community, anyone who follows me, anyone who interacts with my social media, who has ever sent me a message or decided to work with me from social media. That is a labor of love that has been tenfold in purpose and meaning for me. It has truly brought me so many connections that I am so grateful for, and I'm just like, there is another example of a calling where I was fighting and fighting, and like, you know what, if you don't just sit your butt down and listen and do and follow and trust. So yeah, social media has been just a great place to have community, for folks to feel seen, and it's brought me so much more than business.
Yeah.
It's brought me just validation.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I have been so seen by community through social media, and I don't know if I would have experienced that, ducking and dodging in community mental health.
Exactly. We need you exactly where you're at. And I'm just gonna say this comment, and I know I've asked a couple questions already and give Lorraine a chance to jump in here, but I have to say, like, I think I saw you on social media like during the pandemic, maybe.
Mm.
But the first I had the one thing that really stood out that started to like I started to see everybody or people also were noticing was your merch. Um,
Oh, I thought you were
once
gonna say something else. I said, uh-oh.
no, it was your merch. And once your merch was out there, it was like like even like I saw like for our young staff like were wearing the
Oh,
t-shirts and I was just like, hey, that's the Samoan therapist, and it became like a
oh,
thing that like we everybody recognized the t-shirts, and so I know Lorraine has hers on. You can't see it. There you go.
oh, yes.
But it was like you branded it so beautifully, like the color palette, the
Mm.
font, like and the way, yeah, like I have to say, like, your t-shirt really was, I started to see it everywhere, and I was like, oh, we're all watching her. Like, we're all
Oh my gosh.
in this together. So I just want to say thank you for giving us language. Like, I feel seen when I read your posts. And so even though it's like from your own lived experience, as you said, like we all share, we're all connected through this, and we're never alone in it. And so I want to thank you for being so thoughtful in what you have to offer to the world, not just in your practice as a therapist, but also these like storytelling and just sharing your own experiences and vulnerabilities. And it's empowering for us that are
Oh.
watching it. So, yeah, thank you for being that person.
No, thank you. There's no way I could receive that without, again, just emphasizing how much community has held me. And I don't want to cry again on this podcast. And not because I'm not okay with crying, it's because I don't want nobody to pause and be like, did you see that video of my crying on the internet? AKA my siblings. Um, but community has been so healing for me in so many different ways. You know, when I shared earlier that this has been a calling for me, part of that calling means like there's so much for you to receive. And a lot of Pacifica people, we struggle with receiving, right? We're so resilient.
Mm,
We've got grit, we've got fight, we've got ambition and all of that. But it's so hard for us to sit in that softness of just receiving the abundance. And so much that has come from social media for me has been receiving
mm,
love, receiving flowers, testimonies, you know, and being a trusted spirit in this community means everything to me. Like hearing you say, you know, there's people walking around with your shirts, that means people are following me and they know of me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I want to cry every time. Because it's just a deep honor. It is such a deep honor to be a trusted voice, a trusted space, you know, and on social media, a place where people can come, where people can
mm.
feel seen and connect to is like my wildest prayer in reality. I
Yeah.
always say that, like, damn, what prayer was that? Because it's in motion and I feel it.
So many are like we're in so many other people's prayers, like which is nothing more than just
Mm,
to be grateful that there are people that are praying for us even we're not
yeah,
there. So,
yeah.
I don't know, Lorraine, you want to jump in here?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can just keep talking.
Go ahead. But as you're sharing your story and your journey, Vaelupe, um, I what comes to mind for me is accessibility,
Mm,
being accessible with information.
yeah,
And I just also wanted to acknowledge just the courage and the vulnerability you share because when you were talking about being on social media, it's like, a lot of the times when we put stuff out there, we always have to ask ourselves, questions like, oh, like once I put it out there, it's going to be out there for the whole world to
right.
see.
Yeah,
But you do it unapologetically, and not everybody can do that. But when you take that risk of doing that, it can, like you said, it's helped so many different people in ways that you may or may not know.
yeah.
Um, and so, with that vulnerability, um, I kind of wanted to dig a little deeper with the eldest daughter because I myself am an eldest daughter, and I see a lot of you stepping a lot of that coming in when you step up, right? A lot of times as eldest daughter, you said you were fighting that calling to go into mental health, but you're like, you know what? I see the gap. I know nobody else can do it but me. I can do it. I have the tools, and if I don't know how to do it, I'll learn how to do it.
Yeah,
Even with social media, you're like, "Ugh, if there's, something that's in your way, you know you'll figure it out,
right.
and so I guess the question, and it's a question for all of us who have that role, is as eldest daughters, especially in our Samoan or Pacific Islander cultures, how do we move from simply surviving to
Mm,
truly thriving as individuals and communities? Because sometimes there's a struggle, right? It's
yeah,
not like,
yeah.
okay, it's not like I'll put myself first today and then tomorrow I'll put
Mm,
everyone else first. It's like, okay, how do we balance, that complexity?
yeah. Oh my goodness. So much. So I I, like many other women I have sat with, we come from lineage of very strong women. You know, we are here off the
Mhm.
backs of strong women. Like, I know a big part of my story on how my dad and his siblings came here from Samoa was because of my grandma. And my grandma then brought her siblings, and then she brought their kids, right? So I say that is because that part is in us. We understand that we come from a strength of eldest daughters, of women who had to be bold, who had to be courageous, right? And that leads me to my point of just understanding that so much of us have come from survival. And part of how we shift from
Mhm.
surviving to this idea of thriving is we've got to be able to tell the truth about what survival has cost us. You know, I know for me and many of the vulnerable people that I hold in this space, their families come from survival, and they have gone through so much that survival is not going to be the only final destination. It can't be. Like, I refuse to let that go. And many other eldest daughters do too, right? We only if we only know how to
Mhm.
survive, we oftentimes mistake exhaustion for purpose. I know for me, I
Mhm.
used to mistake silence for peace and sacrifice for love.
Don't rock the
And
boat.
like,
Mhm.
we're not doing that anymore, because here's the thing, right? Thriving requires safety. Like, it requires us to have resource,
Mhm.
it requires us to have access. And for many of us, that means we've got to have joy, we've got to have rest, we need to have the
Mhm.
ability to receive. I talked a little bit about how it's so hard for many of us to receive, and I don't mean that um tangibly, right, in like materialistic or even in financial ways. For a lot of us eldest daughters, the thriving feels like having somebody else do it and us not having to ask.
Mhm.
It oftentimes feels like, I
Yeah.
thought of how much you do this, so I did it for you instead, right? Like, so you don't even have to worry about it. That is healing for us. Or,
Yeah.
being
Mhm.
able to not have anything planned and just
Mhm.
show up to a space and receive the abundance of community. That is healing,
Mhm.
and I only share that because sometimes I think we are accustomed to cultural performance a lot of times. And so thriving has to mean that we are funded, we're resourced, we're listened to, we're trusted, and that we're also led. Many eldest daughters, many strong women are used to having to lead. Now, what would it feel like for us to be led by one of us? Everyone would be like, oh, we got it. Well, just wake me up when we're there, whatever the destination is,
You're
right?
like,
Just everyone sit
hallelujah.
back and relax. It would be so nice. And so I just
Mhm.
encourage folks that, that's not uncommon for us. And can we
Mhm.
trust people to provide that space for us? Can we also give permission to not figure it all out and prevent folks
Mhm.
from growing and leading into their leadership because we're always trying to save the day? Can we give folks opportunity to fall so when they get back up, we can dust them off and say, hey, it's all good? Right? That's part of that thriving. We cannot keep thinking that it has to look this certain rigid way, because oftentimes I feel like it creates more chaos and more stress, and then everybody burnt out and irritated with each other, and now, like, it's not fun anymore, right? It's like, where's the joy? What happened to the joy? uh yeah, I went on a little tangent there, but
It's
I just feel
okay.
like that's just a replicated experience I hear all the time.
Shout out to all the eldest daughters out there. We
Running the
love
world.
you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I
Mm.
am not an eldest daughter. Thank goodness. I am an only daughter though. So oftentimes, especially in a Tongan family, I do carry some of the responsibilities that I see
Mm,
eldest daughters carry.
yeah.
But it's certainly not the same. So I want to just give a shout out to y'all, like our community is held up on your backs.
Mm.
So thank you for being that. Thank you for crawling so we could walk. Is that how that saying goes? Um, and I don't know, is that a common theme you see in your field? Are our eldest daughters going into therapy like as therapists because they already do it for free?
Yes, indeed. So much so that I created an eldest daughter support group
Mhm.
specifically for folks who are either identify with the eldest daughter role, so maybe chronologically they're not the firstborn, but they have assumed so much of that role,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they're, both, like me. You were born first and you also are the eldest, and you relate with that. But yes, it's such a unique experience. And I think for Pacifica people in general, what I see is layered depths because there's so much more sacrifice. The eldest daughter role in general is hella parentified. Like,
Mm.
she's the
Mhm.
one who's got it all. Like, mom and dad could just dip off and the whole house is like set,
You're in
right? That's
charge.
usually who they are. But later on, what I see oftentimes in therapy is the impacts of that. Now,
Mm.
now they're struggling to ever trust for someone to show up for them. Now they don't
Right.
ever feel like they can. Now they're exhausted. They don't even know what they
Mhm.
enjoy. They don't really have hobbies or interests because they're so consumed with showing up for everyone else. And again, I think it's a unique experience. So in the eldest daughter group, it's so amazing to teach women how to take a step back, to teach women how to have small, gentle boundaries. Like,
Mm.
we're not out here asking you to go from 100 to zero, but can we drop that 100 to 50 so you have the other 50 for yourself? Is
Mm.
kind of what that group really entails. It's a really powerful space, and obviously I'm biased because that's my lived experience too. So I get to see healing happen in real time,
Mhm.
and sometimes those eldest daughters become my individual clients. So it's also a great segue to folks who maybe aren't ready for therapy, but they want to be in like a healing space. It's usually in a group or a supportive space where that's the segue to, like, okay, maybe I'm interested in therapy now. So
Mm.
it serves so many amazing uh, gateways to like healing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I don't know if we have any questions from YouTube. We were supposed to ask for this in the middle of the episode,
Oh,
but we were in such good conversation, we didn't even ask. But shout out to everybody on YouTube. If there are any questions, you can drop it. But I'm gonna just ask a question to try to move us into a close because we've kept you here long enough. I'm
yeah.
sure you've had a long day. Um, given your experience in your private practice, in creating these spaces, you're one of the hosts of Island Fever podcast. You create and run groups, and you're also part of the founding of the PI clinicians group. I mean, you're in all these places where you're creating space
Yeah.
for people to show up in. And what kind of, given all of that, and if there's someone out there from our community who's interested in this same journey in wanting to eventually open their own practice for the various reasons you've like really shared here, what would be your advice for someone who might be interested in the journey that you've taken for themselves?
I would say sit with someone who's doing what you aspire to do. Try to connect with someone who is a place of inspiration or a potential model. Things really shift when you get to sit and ask questions and get curious, because then you're exposed to all the variations of what it took to get there, not just what you see on the outside.
Mm.
Ask the hard questions. I would encourage folks, like, hey, if you're interested in going into private practice, you probably should talk to someone in private practice because they don't know better than anyone else. But not only the private practice world, right? Again, I speak to like the quality of the work, what you see. If you draw inspiration, and I'll speak for myself, if you draw inspiration from how I show up and how I operate in this world as a someone therapist in private practice, I actually host things called collective wisdom sessions. It's a space where people can see me, pick my brain, ask questions. It's
Wow.
not direct supervision, but for those baby therapists or those folks who are like, I think I want to go to grad school and become a therapist, it is so helpful to talk to someone doing that work,
Mm.
because you also get clarity. And I hope, at least my intention is, I hope it gives someone a sense of direction. So if
Mm.
you are fighting that calling like I was in the trenches, ducking and dodging God's discernment over my life, I hope that I can be a point of a validation to say, hey, yeah, if that's there, you probably should explore it.
Mm.
So just sitting with folks, if you don't have access to someone, conversations like this,
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, right? Doing some YouTube University search work, find someone who is
Mm-hmm.
having conversations about this work that's accessible. There's plenty out there, but just start getting curious.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's always
Yeah.
the best beginning is to seek out the wisdom of those who have walked the path.
Mm,
And as I mentioned, Vaelupe is part of a group called the PI Clinicians, made up of Pacific Islanders that are in the mental health field. It's a beautiful, beautiful group and the perfect place to go to seek out mentorship,
yes.
listen in on the field and get a feel for what everyone's doing, right? People are working in different spaces in mental health capacity.
Yes.
So check it out on social media. They have their annual conference coming up later on in the fall. And so there are many opportunities to engage folks like Vaelupe. We have Lorraine here at SoCal Pickard, who I'm holding on to for dear life, so she can be continue to be accessible through our work. I am always really grateful for Lorraine's been my like unpaid therapist for over 10 years. Unofficially therapist for all these years. She's also just like
Mm,
my dear friend. So, um,
mm.
but yeah, I wanted to ask that last question as I'm stalling to see if YouTube has any questions, but seeing as I don't see anything in the chat, I don't know, like I'll kick it over to Lorraine in case she has a last question before we transition to closing. But thank you for answering my questions.
I I was gonna ask a serious question, but I feel like I would regret this if I didn't ask. What is your favorite R&B artist?
I was gonna ask that.
It's
Oh my
like, oh
gosh.
no, you know what? Let's just ask
Oh,
that. I
that's
would be.
hard. That's hard
You
because
could do your
like
top three if you wanted.
okay, that's better
Okay,
because
okay, top
to
three, top
me,
three.
90s R&B specifically is like elite.
Yes.
That is
Mm.
where it maybe it's my therapist too. I'm like, that's where all the feels lie. Them songs be hitting.
Yup.
Even if you ain't never had your heart broken, you're crying like you did.
Yup.
Um, but my top three, oh my gosh, for sure, Monica and Brandy.
Mm.
Those two women specifically, the vocals, the tone, the emotions, the nostalgia,
Mm.
like it's just timeless for me. I grew up listening to all my older cousins bumping those two.
Mm.
Again, didn't have no business singing about heartbreak, ain't never been in a relationship at 12. And
Right?
then, oh my gosh, I have to think third one? Oh Lord, I don't know because I'm stuck between like SWV or
Mm.
Escape. Like those
Uh,
are all the like
Yeah,
again, I have
it's
no
hard. It's
business
hard.
at 6 years old singing all them songs, but the
all
softness,
I
the
need from you.
exactly. My karaoke song is definitely always one from each of them artists. Like I can't sing, but karaoke, I'm just gonna honor them girls. Big anti energy is what those
Mm,
artists give me.
Mm.
Like you think
Yeah.
about your nostalgia of like back in the day.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Are you reading or listening to anything right now?
Oh my gosh. Of course I'm listening to SoCal Pickard's previous Roots of Resilience.
Yay!
Definitely listening to those. I obviously have to listen to Island Fever back
Yes.
and forth because I always hear something different
Oh
every
my gosh.
time. I do have some favorite books, audio
Mm,
books
yes.
too. I probably shouldn't plug heavy ones just yet. But one really good read is called My Grandmother's Hands.
Mm,
And it's by
mm,
Resma. I wouldn't want to say her last name wrong. Menakem. I'm probably
mm,
saying it wrong. I need to learn that better. But it's a book that helped me think deeply about trauma in the body, not just in the
mm,
mind. And a lot of therapists will revert to Brene Brown's book, but for
mm,
me, My Grandmother's Hands is a better connection to my lived
Ooh.
experience as a Pacifica person.
um,
Um, and then honestly, too, it's not a book or a podcast, but always listening to my ancestors and my elders is a resource. Talking to God, my family is a resource that I'm constantly consulting with,
oh,
if that's the right
I love
word.
it.
just
Yes.
just reminding folks that learning and knowledge doesn't always just exist in in these tangible books or
Books.
podcasts, right? It lives
Mm.
in the bodies, in your kitchens,
Mhm.
in your living room, on your drive home, in your songs, your prayers. So that's also something I'm constantly divulging myself in to learn from.
I love that.
Ah, man, the time has flown by, Vaelupe. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, it's already.
And now I almost felt like Peter and Upa, like, we're gonna have to bring you
Yeah,
back for another episode.
I know. Part two
Yeah.
there. But we're so honored that we finally had the opportunity to just talk story with you. And,
Yeah.
before we end it tonight, we just wanted to give you a chance for any last words of wisdom before we
Mhm.
close it out.
Yeah, closing thoughts is that healing for our people has to be both personal and collective. We deserve so much more than survival, and we deserve spaces where we can fully be seen. What do I mean by that? This is a call in to organizations, hire Pacifica folks, train Pacifica folks by Pacifica people, and not just relying on Pacifica people to
Mhm.
occupy space by showing our culture. Be
Mm.
curious, but to our people. I know what it feels like to search for belonging. I know what it feels like to carry culture with pride, with pain. And I know what it feels like to want to make your people proud. And so that starts with being honest about who you are and what you have, what you don't have. But ultimately, I hope that the work I do helps our people feel less alone, that this conversation gives someone language where they don't have to carry it silently. And I think it's just a reminder like we're worthy of care, y'all. Not just when we're in crisis, when we're burning out, when there's no gas in the tank, but honestly, just as we are. So I hope we can keep building spaces like this where our people can feel like they have a little more in them because they can talk story, they can receive story. So if that resonates, I hope people stay connected. Follow me, listen to these episodes, and also too like the shameless plug we said earlier. You can always just interact for the free. There's merch, there's groups. Shameless plug if you're struggling, baby. I'm one of many. So not to just say for me, but I know many amazing Pacifica clinicians. So if you're interested in therapy or connecting to a therapist, please, I have an entire listing on my website where you can learn how to get started.
Oh, thanks so much, Lupe. So inspiring and just being authentic, something we
Yeah.
definitely need in this world, especially for our Pacifica peoples. And I just was thinking about this episode for a while because earlier I was Alicia and I were talking. I was like, oh, I'm so nervous. But I think it's
Oh,
because, just all the work that you do, just so happy and proud, that we have our folks stepping into that space. I know a lot of times with mental health, folks might think, it might be soft or like, oh, we don't want to talk about feelings, but
yeah.
actually that's one of the most hardest things to talk about. People will, like you said, people will make fun of you. They'll, do whatever they need to do to repress those feelings. But once you feel comfortable and just sharing whatever is within you, it's such a healing experience. And so, connecting with you and grateful to, Lacey and SoCal Pickert for this opportunity that we got to break bread with you today. And of course, don't be a stranger. We always welcome you here at SoCal Pickert.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
with that, we'll go ahead and share how folks can reach you. Um, let's see. You have Instagram at Pacifica Rooted Therapy. You also have your website there as well. So I see. Oh, thanks, Meal. There's
Aw.
her Instagram, website. Also, if you're interested in having Vaelupe come and speak or facilitate workshops, feel free to go to her website for any questions. And then we also put information there on your eldest daughter's support group,
Thank
as well
you.
as the Pacifica Experiences group. So yeah, feel free to reach out to Vaelupe, and then we'll just share a couple of resources. We'll also be posting on our Instagram. So the first resource is a webinar where you can learn exactly where your biggest legal blind spots live, and what to do before they become your most expensive business lesson. So if you're interested in that, feel free. It's Monday, June 8th at 10 a.m. All these webinars are free, so you can check out the link to register there. And then our second resource is the 5 costly mistakes small business owners can make. So this webinar teaches you how to learn more about finance, marketing, operations, tech, and people. This webinar is on Thursday, June 11th at 10 a.m. Again, all the information will be on our social media if you're interested. And then, of course, last but not least, we have Pack Biz. We always want to remind our Pacific Islander businesses, if you haven't already, to list your business on there. It's made by our people for our people. If your business is already listed, please claim it. If not, you can go ahead and add your business to the directory. So it's a great way to connect to community and learn about your business. And then, of course, check out our Instagram for all these resources, more information on Vaelupe. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. Feel free to also follow us if you like this episode and want to watch more of our Roots of Resilience podcast. Again, thank you, Vaelupe, for all of your energy and just the care that you pour into our community. And so our next episode will be Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. And with that, I'll go ahead and close us in a closing prayer so we can all
Lorraine,
leave
can I just
safely.
quickly say my thank
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
to you guys. You guys helped
Mm-hmm.
me so deeply tonight, and I'm grateful, for the way that you and Alici held this conversation. I think anyone who is tuned in, who holds the medicine of just our storytelling and our talanoa, it means so much to me to be asked about what I do by other Pacifica women who also are leaders in this community. So I don't want to close this out without giving you guys the love and the flowers that you rightfully deserve. You guys have been so pivotal in seeing me, amplifying my voice, and letting me be visible to community. So a huge thank you to the both of you for your spirit, your energy, and your
Oh,
love. Like truly, I'm grateful. Thank you.
thank you, Vaelupe. Oh, it's all warm feelings now, huh? Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this beautiful evening that we were able to share with Vaelupe. We're grateful for her spirit and her energy and just the compassion that she gives to our communities. We pray that Thou may continue to bless her with health and strength as she continues to help those that are suffering in our community or all around. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for the opportunity to connect with one another and that we may also help to serve and to see those that may be in pain and be able to reach out and support or connect them to resources. We're grateful for all of the wisdom and the insight that she shared with us and be able to share it with others that may need it. We're grateful for blessing us with this opportunity to share our talents and our skills and our knowledge with those around us. We love thee very much. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you,
Um, Thank
Lorraine. Thank you,
you.
Vaelupe. We'll see
Thank
you
you,
again
y'all.
soon.
Enjoy your night.
Take
Thanks,
Bye.
care. Have a good
everybody.
evening.